Hi everyone, Bandana here. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to go over a lot of the basics for brand new players to the Hunt Showdown. I will chapter everything so you can jump to specific sections, as it'll end up being fairly long. Now, simply put, I can't cover every intricate detail about the Hunt Showdown in one video. So we'll do a general overview of the game here, and then perhaps do some more detailed videos on specific topics later, such as individual weapons or weapon types, and individual traits, etc. Now, this video is really intended for brand new players who have no experience with the game, or perhaps someone who's interested in the game and wants to know more about it. Obviously, if there are any questions that you have which I haven't covered in the video, feel free to ask them down below. I will try and answer them if I can in the comments, and it's potentially something that can also be slipped into a future video. Now, why Hunt Showdown, I hear you ask? Well, it's a game I personally really enjoy. It's also one that can be really intimidating to get into for the first time, but I want to assure everybody here and now, you don't have to be an expert in the game to enjoy it, and you don't have to be a total crackshot or an amazing FPS player in general to succeed. Okay, it helps in some ways, but the game's MMR or matchmaking rating system does a reasonable job at keeping you with people of a similar level. Hunt Showdown is also a game that has gone from strength to strength with an ever-expanding player base. Since its release, it's had fairly regular updates, new things added, as well as various events every few months. So what are we going to cover in this video? Well, we're going to cover the tutorials and the other training options. We're going to cover sound because it's really important in the game. We're going to cover the game modes. We're going to cover ranks and progression. We're going to cover the hunters and the recruitment, the currency types in the game, traits, a brief overview, equipment, which covers weapons and items, and then finally a quick rundown of the mobs, though I won't cover the individual bosses or bounty targets in this video. But let's get down to business. First up, we can't really have a getting started video without talking about the tutorial. Earlier this year, they released an entirely new tutorial, and the whole first part is now scripted and has a friendly NPC along telling you what to do, with a rather familiar voice.
But running for too long will drain you. Stop sprinting at times to catch your breath.
Yes, that is indeed Geralt from The Witcher. After doing the initial part of the tutorial, you can continue on and do the advanced part, where you go on to fight the spider boss, along with getting to see some of the other NPC or mob enemies, which will spawn in the main game. It is worth doing for a few reasons. Firstly, it's a reasonable introduction to the game and its main mode and mechanics, along with letting you get a taste of some of the bounty bosses. You will also be gifted the tier 1 hunter you've been playing as at the end, so that you can take that into the main games with all the experience and weapons that you already have. I will explain about tiers of hunters in the later section covering recruitment. And finally, in this section, I want to talk about the shooting range. This was a recent addition to the game, and it's definitely worth a mention here. It's set in the fort from one of the maps, and it allows you to test out weapons. All the weapons in the game, various items as well, and also some traits that relate to particular weapons, on various stationary dummy targets. Or if you load in with friends, you can choose to play against them in a versus mode and test things against each other, or indeed have your own private shooting match and see who really is the best shot. Good news, especially for me, is that you have unlimited respawns. It is really a fantastic place for testing out various different weapons and seeing how much damage they do, as you do get a readout of the damage when you shoot the dummies. I've actually found it a really good place for testing damage versus range as well, because there is a damage drop-off the further you get away from your targets. But hey, that's not the basics, that's getting into the more advanced stuff, so let's move on. Now, before we move on to the game modes, I want to talk about sound, and it's really hard to know where to slip it in, but I'm going to stick it here before we talk about those because it's such an important aspect of the game. Hunt Showdown has exceptional sound engineering. I mean exceptional. It probably has the best sound ever in an FPS that I've played. It is genuinely really impressive. With that in mind, it is worth taking some time to get your volume levels right, without deafening yourself. I know, for example, that my sound is a little bit higher than some of my friends that I play with because I can generally hear people crouch walking near me and they can't. I think in my head, All other things being quiet, I want to be able to hear people crouch walking near me within about 10 meters. But everyone will have a different preference on this, based on the volume of other sounds in the game as well. However, just as examples, every surface in the game has a different sound, as does every weapon, item and NPC or mob in the game. It will take a while to learn them all, and the types of sound that they make, so don't be discouraged early on. This is something that just comes to you over time, and you will gradually be able to distinguish, oh, that's a shotgun, oh, that's a pistol, oh, that's a rifle. And the sound is so good in this game. Genuinely, one day you will suddenly just go, oh, that was a Romero shotgun, oh, that was a Nagant pistol. Yes, the sound is genuinely that good. You can distinguish individual gun types from their shot sound. And no, obviously, don't expect to do that anytime within the first month of playing, but it's something to look forward to in the future. Just as you can also use this to judge how far away someone is when firing a weapon, or if they were firing inside or outside a building, the same with explosives. Incidentally, when viewing weapons on the menu, you can actually test this out. Now, sound in the Hunt Showdown doesn't stop at footsteps and gunshots. It also comes down to sound traps. This can range from something on the ground like glass, cans or a dry branch, something hanging such as chains, or indeed an active sound trap such as a horse, crows or ducks. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the chicken coops and the dog cages, which also make a lot of noise. That said, in complete fairness, all mobs in the game kind of act as sound traps because they will make a specific sound when they engage you. Not to mention, you will make a noise when you engage them. And yes, I will hear you stabbing a grunt zombie from the other side of the compound. The truth is, if you're being fairly stealthy, you'll want to avoid these sound traps where possible and kill things like horses silently from range with either a silenced pistol, a bow or crossbow, or some kind of thrown melee weapon. Early on, when you're just learning to play, if you are struggling with the animal-based sound traps, you can go down the route of getting the Beast Face trait. This reduces the range at which they can see you, / you can set them off. A special note about crows and ducks is that they also have a visual giveaway. They will fly away from you, so whichever direction you approach from, they will fly in the opposite direction, potentially giving away where you're running to. There's potential there to use that to your advantage, but we'll talk about that in a different video. One thing I will mention that I've noticed, but I'm not 100% sure it is true, is that your sounds that you make to yourself are a lot quieter than they are to the enemy. So just something to bear in mind. One last thing I'd like to talk about before we move on to the game modes are barrels. They're kind of brushed over in the tutorial, but I think they're quite important, especially when you're not expecting them. So barrels come in 3 varieties. Red are explosive, yellow are fire but still explode, just not doing as much explosive damage, and green are poison / bees. The green barrels explode when you shoot them once. However, the red and yellow barrels, well, these can be shot once with a normal bullet to set them on fire, and then they explode after a few seconds. Hitting them with a second bullet will blow them up immediately, and incendiary rounds will make them explode instantly on impact of the first shot. You will also see people putting alert trip mines next to them, as running in and setting these off will also make the barrel explode. So when you're in a fight, just be aware of your surroundings and avoid standing next to a red barrel in particular. Hunt Showdown has 2 game modes, both are PvPvE. The first is how it was originally designed, Bounty Hunt mode. This is the extraction shooter mode where you, or you and your team, are dropped into one of 3 maps and must find clues to hunt for the bounty target or targets. Once killed, you can banish these bosses, which takes a couple of minutes, and then gain a bounty token. You must then extract from the map with that token. If you have done the advanced tutorial, it is very similar, other than there are also players trying to kill you. You can play this mode solo or in teams of 2 or 3. You can also choose between playing in games with duos or trios. Some people, for example, like to play solo versus trios. A maximum of 12 players can spawn on any one map. So, for example, you could have 6 duos, or a mixture of duos and solos, and then in trios you would have a maximum of 4 teams of 3, or a mixture of anything else therein. In bounty hunt mode, there can be 1 or 2 boss targets, or bounty targets if you prefer to call them that. These main targets offer 2 bounty tokens. You get additional reward for extracting with these tokens. On the occasions there is only a single bounty target, there is a chance that Rotjaw will also spawn. Unlike other bounty targets, she spawns out in the open and vanishes faster as a result. She also only provides a single bounty token. Finding her is also a little bit different to the other bosses. In their case, you will find 3 clues to narrow down the compound on the map where they reside. For her, you will find a Rotjaw trace, and it will point you in the direction of her spawn, but not exactly where it is. Other than Rotjaw, in the new version of the game, 1896, they have also added a brand new wild target called the Hellborn. This is like an immolator on steroids. To find this guy, you need to go into Darksight and listen for him at the start of the match or any point through the match. He will make a noise every 10 seconds or so, and you can kind of pinpoint the direction you need to move in to find it. Much like Rotjaw, he will spawn in a few various locations on the maps, obviously subject to change. I will note that when you are just starting out in the game, playing solo in this mode is quite difficult, because although you will potentially meet other solos, you will also come up against at least duos, or indeed trios if you're crazy enough to select that. The good news is, as a solo, the MMR system will give you some benefit and put you with slightly lower level teams, so you stand a chance against them. The last thing I want to mention about Bounty Hunt in this video is Darksight. If you manage to kill and banish a bounty target and then gain the bounty token, you will gain 5 seconds of Darksight. This will highlight enemy players who are within 150 meters of you in bright orange. You do not have to use all 5 seconds at once, and the general trick is to spin quickly and use just 1 second to look all around you. To gain additional seconds, you can either loot enemy players, or if there is a second boss on the map, you can use a clue. Each will give you an additional second of Darksight up to a maximum of 5, unless you are a solo player. If you are a solo player and you have the trait Magpie, then Darksight is actually doubled, so you get 10 seconds rather than 5. Alright, let's move on to the second game mode, Sole Survivor, formerly called Quick Play. This is a solo only game mode and sort of a cross between King of the Hill and Battle Royale. Again, there will be a maximum of 12 players in the game. Unlike Bounty Hunt, you don't have to take in your own hunter or spend any money on items and weapons. Here you will pick the hunter from a list and then choose a type of weapon to start with. Random obviously gives you a random weapon from any of the other selections. Medium range generally gives you a pistol or possibly a hand crossbow. Short range will usually be a shotgun, but can include a pistol with an underbarrel shotgun. Melee is exactly what it sounds like, some kind of larger melee weapon, such as a machete, and you'll also start with a secondary melee item / weapon, such as a knife or knuckle duster, and also a medkit. Once you're actually spawned in the map, you will find that you are now playing effectively a battle royale where you have to find and pick up weapons and items in the various compounds, usually on top of blue boxes. You will also notice in the top left hand corner there is a number 450. Once the game starts, this will start counting down immediately. These are the number of points that are available for you to win if you get the Wellspring, which is the goal of this game mode. However, the longer it takes, the less points you get. Not to mention, people can also take the Wellspring off you by killing you. To activate the Wellspring, you need to close rifts, which are basically the same as clues in the other game mode. You need to find 4 of them to activate the Wellspring. Once it has been activated by a player, everyone on the map will be alerted to their general location, and then it is a fight against time to grab the Wellspring off them, or indeed die trying. The only way to survive this mode is by holding the Wellspring when the points run out, or when everybody else is dead on the map. If you are the lucky survivor, and yes, there can only be one, the hunter will be added to the Sole Survivor pool, and you can then use them in the Bounty Hunt mode. They will retain any items or weapons you picked up, as well as any experience and traits that they gained in the game. As a new player, this can be a great way to try out different types of weapons, as there will be plenty on the map. However, one disadvantage to this game mode is, although it affects your MMR when you die or kill someone, There is no MMR balancing for the game mode itself, so you can be placed against people at a much higher level than you. Soul Survivor also has a version of Darksight, but it's actually reversed. The players without the Wellspring are able to see the Wellspring player once they get close enough to their compound as an orange blob that jumps around. The closer they get to the Wellspring player, the less the orange blob moves. And unlike Bounty Hunt mode, it is also unlimited in its uses. One thing that I will note about both game modes is that you have a limited amount of ammo on your person. However, there is more available around the map. There are ammo crates and special ammo crates, and there are also individual packets of ammunition based on size. A good place to find these are supply points which are marked on the map. Here you will find 3 standard ammo boxes, a special ammo box, a toolbox, and 3 medkits. Just remember, everybody else will also want ammo from these locations. Okay, so the next thing I want to cover quickly, although I covered it in my video the other day, which goes into the menu more, is the progression system, just because it's important to go over it. So, the main progression system is the Bloodline progression system. That is the rank 1 up here. I'm at rank 100, but you start at rank 1. If I click on Bloodline here, you'll see it whizzes all the way to the end because I'm at rank 100. But if we go back to the start, you'll start at rank 1, and every time you rank up, you unlock either an item, such as throwing knives, so a tool, a consumable, such as a vitality shot, or a trait. And you will unlock things all the way up to rank 64. After 64, you just get hunt dollars. This is because they're trying to give you as much as possible before you get higher up. And the lower the level, or the lower the rank, the quicker it is to rank up. So once you get all the way to the top, it's 25,000 Bloodline XP to rank up. Bloodline XP is your personal XP, not the same XP as what your hunter gets. Once you're at rank 100, if you want to, you can prestige. That is this next button down. So at the moment, this doesn't show you very much. However, they're changing this to be the same as the Bloodline progression. So in a patch or two, this will look very similar to the previous one, so you can see exactly what you can unlock at each level. The only thing it's telling me right now is that I would unlock Jesse Buchanan, which is a rookie character, if I prestige right now. Straightforward enough. The other thing to mention is in the newest version of Hunt, you automatically have all weapons unlocked in their base variant when you start playing the game. You then need to unlock the other versions of those weapons. So if you click on weapon progression, and if I just find one that is locked, so Centennial Shorty here, if I right click on the Centennial and click progression, you can see here I started with the Centennial, I then unlocked the Shorty, and then unlocked the Sniper, and then I unlocked the Trauma. This is because the Shorty was added later. So I'd now need to earn 600 experience by using any of the Centennial weapons to unlock that, and that applies to all weapons in the game. You need to use the base variant to unlock better variants or different variants. They're not necessarily better, they just might have a scope or a bayonet or some other kind of additional thing like a silencer for the Bornheim here. Hopefully all of that makes sense. Everything else is unlocked via the progression of the Bloodline rank. So all of the tools, all of the consumables, and all of the traits are unlocked via the Bloodline rank. Next up, I'd like to quickly touch on Hunters. Again, I covered it in my video about the menus and stuff, but we'll touch on it very quickly here. This is your Hunters list that you currently have active in the game. 17 of 8 for me. Obviously, I've got a few extra from the update. If I go along to some of my higher level Hunters, these ones are at the max level 50. They will level up independently as you play them. The higher the level, the more upgrade points they get, the more traits they can have. However, if they get to level 25 and you right-click on them, you will have the option to retire that hunter. If you retire that hunter, then you will get Bloodline experience. So if you are low in your Bloodline level and you want to rank it up faster, then a good way to do that is to get a hunter to level 25 and then retire it, and just accept that you're moving on from that hunter. Remember, you're going to die and lose a lot of hunters in this game, so retiring them is neither here nor there. It just means that you're boosting your Bloodline rank faster. Okay, what about buying a hunter? Well, you go to the Recruit Hunters option here. Hopefully they're going to change this a little bit, because at the moment it's a bit fiddly to get into and going back and forward. You'll have two options here. All Hunters. This one shows you every hunter that is available to you, which will be base hunters that are just with the game. It will also include ones from Twitch drops, from battle passes, like the big events. It will also include ones that you purchase from DLCs, and also ones purchased from the store as Blood Bond purchases. Now, all of these will cost 100, and they will come with no gear, but they do have 3 randomized traits, and those 3 traits can obviously be very good or very basic. If I now go back, it will take me back to this screen, which I don't want to be on. I want to go back to the Recruit Hunter screen. That's one of the issues at the minute. I can click on Free Hunters. Free Hunters is an option for those who maybe don't have much cash, or maybe you just don't want to spend any. Free Hunters are exactly what it says in the tin. They are very basic. They don't have fancy skins or anything, but they come with free equipment. They come with 1 trait as well, though it won't be anything exciting. The idea being that if you run out of money, then you can quickly get back into the game. You can't sell any of this gear. It's contraband. However, you know, at the end of the day, it's just a quick option for getting into the game where you don't have to spend any of your own cash. One thing I will mention while we're here is just about hunter skins. Do they matter? The answer is yes, to some extent. As you can imagine, this guy with a light shirt on is quite easy to spot, as would this lady here be. Whereas if I go to my guy here, the Lonely Howl, this is one of my DLC purchases, he is obviously a lot harder to see in the dark and obviously in the shadows. That applies to a lot of characters that have darker clothing. This guy, for example, would also probably fall into that. Or perhaps this fella here, who comes in a couple of different variants. As you can see, he was one of the unlocks from a battle pass. But there are many different skins. I don't have them all. Some of them are obviously better than others at being hidden. A good example was this guy, the Reptilian, which I believe they made a little bit lighter because he was simply nearly invisible in a dark corner. But there you go. Skins do matter to some extent, but it is not the be-all and end-all. It will not save you in every situation. Okay, this is turning into a long video. Let's have a quick breather. So what's left to talk about? First we'll talk about currency, then traits, then the equipment, then the Dark Tribute, and finally we'll have a quick go through the different mobs in the game. Okay, so the game's currencies. The main one is obviously Hunt Dollars. This is what you earn in the game, is what you pay for your equipment with, and what you pay for your hunters with once you actually own those hunter skins. Now, the Hunt Dollars can be found simply by playing the game, as you generally would. You know, you get it for simply closing rifts or finding clues for the bosses, and killing the bosses and getting out of the bounty, killing other players and looting them. Various ways to get lots of Hunt Dollars. They're not hard to come by, and if you're struggling at some point, you can get a free hunter, and that is an easy way to make cash that hasn't cost you anything. The other currency in the game are Blood Bonds. Blood Bonds are a paid currency, but you can find them from just playing the game or doing the weekly quests and things like that. Blood Bonds, obviously, you technically would have to pay for if you didn't just find them in game. I can assure you I've spent very little, if any, money on Blood Bonds. I found most of mine in game or got them from completing various events, and I have nearly 4,000, and I've just spent 1,000 on the new battle pass. So you don't have to buy these. It is completely optional. It depends if you want to buy things off the Blood Bond store. So a quick other thing to mention is you will find in-game saddlebags that can have Hunt Dollars in. You will find little pouches that can either have Hunt Dollars, or you'll find golden pouches that have Blood Bonds, and the same goes for little cash registers. They will either have Hunt Dollars, or you might be very lucky and find a very rare gold one that has some Blood Bonds as well. So one of the things we've mentioned a couple of times through this guide are traits, but we've not really talked about them in any more detail. They give your characters additional passive abilities or sometimes active abilities depending on which one it is. How exactly do you get these traits? Well, if you're playing Sole Survivor mode, you get a trait every time you close a rift. You can also find them in both game modes as trait charms on the floor. Other than that, the more normal way to get them is to purchase them with upgrade points which your hunters get as they level up. They can also be found randomly in envelopes on walls when you are playing on the game map. Traits allow you to tailor your hunters to be more efficient with specific weapons, give bonuses to things like stamina or healing, amongst other things. I won't go into them all here as that's a video in itself, but I will say Doctor is a very handy one, which is why it's also quite expensive. The truth is you will learn to take the ones that aid your particular playstyle, and you can remove them later and get some of their points back. Upgrade points are also used to buy back missing health chunks that you lose in game via dying and being revived, or ones that get burnt off. The other way to do this is to banish a bounty target in the game. Okay, so what I'd like to do before we move on is quickly go over what the symbols mean in all of these little boxes, just because I know the question is coming. So on the top left, the star that's empty means you haven't favorited this. If you favorited it, it becomes solid. The triangle that points down in the middle means that you have already got that trait assigned to your hunter, and it will be up here as well at the top right of the screen. The little symbol at the top right of these boxes relates to the pact of the events. I'm not going to explain the events here, that's for another video, and there are plenty up on YouTube anyway. But basically, that's what that means, and they will change and vary from event to event. If you see a little white symbol in the bottom left-hand corner, this means it is a solo trait. It's not just for solo players, it's a funny thing to call it. Basically, it means that there's an additional bonus if you're playing solo, and they are explained on the card. Like here, your footsteps make less noise while crouching. Then you have red and blue little icons or little symbols. Red means it is a burn trait. A burn trait means that once it is used, it vanishes, and you either have to buy it back if it is purchasable, or in the case of Death Cheat, which is a scarce trait, that's the blue symbol, can only be found via the trait charms on the game map. So good luck finding it after you've used it once. Another thing we should quickly go over is equipment. So I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail because there's a lot of equipment in the game, but I'm going to give you a rundown of the basics. So let's talk about weapons first. When you first start the game, you'll have access to all the base weapons. Some of them have actually been renamed in this new version of the game. I don't know if that's to make things simpler for new players, or that they've had some kind of copyright issue. For example, the Ranger 73 used to be a Winfield rifle. I'm not sure what happened there, but things have changed slightly. Now, you will start, as I say, with all of the base weapons. So you will start with the Ranger 73, but then you will have to unlock the Aperture, the Swift, the Talon, etc., etc. These are done by simply playing the game and using the base weapon. So if you use the Ranger 73, you will slowly unlock everything else. You can see this if you go to the weapons right-click menu and select Progression. And there you can see all the ones that you would gradually unlock. You can pick up weapons in the game, either randomly placed on the map, or that are on dead hunters. These ones you can use regardless of whether you've unlocked them or not. They're just, you've picked them up, you can use them, it's a gun. It's a bit like real life. You pick it up, you can probably use it. Weapons come in a few different varieties. So they come in different sizes. They take either a large slot, like this Ranger. They can take a medium slot, like shorter weapons that have had their barrel cut off, or small slots, such as pistols. There are also other things to consider when you're talking about weapons. One thing is the type of ammo. So there is compact ammo, which are the smallest bullets, medium ammo, the medium-sized bullets, and then long ammo, the longest bullets. The idea being that the long ammo does more damage and has the longest drop-off when it comes to doing that damage. Please note, in the new version of the game, headshots kill no matter the distance. However, there is bullet drop now, so bear that in mind. There are also shells, obviously. For the shotguns, they play differently to the other ammo types because shells, or at least the shells that are like buckshot with multiple pellets, each pellet does a certain amount of damage. They are not guaranteed to get a headshot if one pellet hits you in the head. I've tested it. There's also a couple of other special ammo types such as explosive ammo, fire ammo, and poison ammo. On top of that, there are also special weapons. Special weapons are either quite expensive, like the Nitro Express, which is used for taking down elephants, or it's things like the hand crossbow, the hunting bow, or the bomb lance, or the crossbow. These are all weapons I will let you explore yourself, but they come with some interesting ammo types, especially exploding shells. Let us move on. Next up, you have tools. Tools are items that you will utilize in a mission or when you're on the map, and if you survive, they get replenished automatically. These can be things like traps, they can be choke bombs, which are for putting out fire effectively or making your enemy cough and not see straight. You've got decoy fuses, you've got your melee sort of sidearms here as well. You get flare pistols, your first aid kit, also throwing weapons like axes and knives, or the spear as the case may be. So there's a few different items there that are available. As I say, all very handy. Some can be used to turn the tide of a battle, and some are just there to be a distraction, such as the blank fire decoys or the decoy fuses, to make people think you're throwing an explosive. Consumables are a little different. Once you use a consumable, it is gone. You have to buy it if you survive the round again. So if you use a hive bomb and you want one in the next game, you've got to buy it again. You can find these randomly on the map as well, so keep your eyes peeled. They do appear randomly, and you can get them sometimes out of little boxes. You'll also sometimes get things like this when you loot an enemy hunter, usually something explosive or a firebomb. They are fantastic items because they can truly turn the tide of a battle. A well-placed frag bomb can easily kill someone. A well-placed stick of dynamite can kill someone through a thin wall. So you have to keep in mind that some of these can actually damage through walls. I'll let you find that out on your own. But there's also things like stamina shots here, vitality shots, and regen shots that regen you over time. So lots of interesting stuff to explore. Something I'd like to cover very quickly is the Dark Tribute system. This is something that resets every 24 hours. As you play the game and you gain experience points, then you will gradually fill up this bar at the bottom. Every time you hit one of these, 2,000, 4,000, 5,500, and then 8,000, you can claim a reward. These rewards can be anything from hunt dollars to blood bonds to items to even the very rare hunter slot. Most of the time you'll probably just be getting base stuff like items and hunt dollars though, but you can get very lucky from time to time. Obviously, filling this up every day takes a while, but it is well worth getting those free rewards. Also, you'll notice at the moment this is coloured red. That's because it gets a bonus 200 event points when you complete it every day. So, worth getting your 2,000 if you're trying to do an event that's currently going on. Obviously, this may be different in the future when an event is not running. Okay, the last thing I want to run through very quickly are the standard mobs in the game. I'm not going to talk about the bosses in this video, simply because there's a lot to talk about there, and that will be its own individual video if I do it. The standard mobs are split into 3 categories: infected, marked, and packs. Infected are basically the standard grunts or zombies, and there are a few different varieties. They can either have no weapons at all, a cleaver that makes you bleed, flaming torches to make you burn. Oh, and do note these torches also keep burning on the ground, so be careful around barrels. Or they can be termed more special grunts, lantern grunts, which smash you with a lantern and set you on fire, killing themselves in the process. Pistol grunts: while they have a pistol, they don't actually shoot you, but it will set off when they hit you, giving away your position with a gunshot. There is the Doctor Grunt. These guys have a poison blade, but they also drop a handy medkit when killed. There is also the Minor Grunt, and these have a head torch that explodes in flames if you hit them in the head. So if you're going to stab these guys, do it in the chest. Then there are the marked mobs. These are the armoured, which we will have seen in the tutorial, and kind of self-explanatory, though watch out for the ones covered in barbed wire. They will make you bleed. There are hives, and I call these the bee ladies, basically a person who hosts a load of bees that they send out to attack you and poison you when they see you. Next up you have the immolators. These are the very fast moving, angry sounding, burning guys. If you pierce them with anything sharp or a bullet, they will explode into a flame ball and become even angrier. It's best to use blunt weapons on them, such as a knuckle duster. Finally, you have the meatheads. These are the massive, lumbering, bloated, blind creatures with no head that hits like a truck and takes a lot of damage. They are surrounded by leeches, and these act as their eyes. They will try and poison you, which makes you visible for longer, for lack of a better term, to the meathead. I should note that any poison will make you visible to them. So if someone shoots you with a poisoned round and you're stood next to one of these or near them, they will come after you. Next up, you have the pack mobs, and these are the hellhounds, which are for me the most annoying mob. They maul their target and make them bleed, and they are often in packs, so multiple hit you at once. Headshots work well, but be warned, some of them have a metal mask to stop that being effective. And finally, there are water devils. These are a swarm of worm-like creatures or leeches that live in water. They move very fast and cause significant bleeding and damage if they catch you. Okay, so we've kind of covered all of the basics and given a lot of general information of the game at this point, and I don't want to go any further. There's an endless amount of information I could give you, but I think that's enough to get started with, and I think we then move on to other videos focusing more on individual aspects. So I'm going to stop here and start thinking about what other guides would be useful and what kinds of tips and tricks videos I can make. Obviously, if you have any suggestions, please do make them down below in the comments, and if it's possible I can do something with it, I will add it to the list. Regardless of anything else, I hope this has been helpful for someone. I really do enjoy making these guides and helping new players out in various games. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Please do hit the like button, remember to subscribe, and it doesn't hurt to hit the bell to be notified when other guides or videos go up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.